The ex-wife is running his business. The ex-wife, from his own lips, we have other recordings where he said she was a faithful, good wife, a great mother for 30-something years, maybe 36, I'm not exactly sure, but over 30 years. And this part is the sad part. She was begging him to stay and not leave her.
I know this might sound crazy. I know some of you are going to think I've lost my mind, but I need you to hear me out on this one. Because there's a question that's been on my mind ever since Joni Lamb died on May 7th, 2026. Will Doug Weiss go back to Lisa? Now, before you click away, before you leave a comment calling me crazy, let me paint you a picture. Let me show you something that nobody else is talking about, because when you look at the evidence, and I mean really look at it, you start to see a pattern that's disturbing. A pattern that suggests Doug Weiss never really left Lisa at all. Here's what I'm going to show you in this episode. Doug Weiss praised Lisa like no other woman for over 30 years in books, in videos, in seminars, in counseling sessions. When he spoke about Joni, it was scripted, rehearsed, performative, like he was reading lines. Doug kept his divorce secret for over a year, continuing to counsel couples while pretending to have a great marriage. Doug and Lisa still work together at Heart to Heart Counseling Center, even after the divorce. Doug's entire story about why he divorced Lisa doesn't add up, and multiple people who were there say he's lying. And here's the kicker. Now that Joni is gone, and more importantly, now that the money and power are up for grabs, Doug might just go back to Lisa. Because here's the question nobody's asking. How do you stay in business with someone you claim abused you in marriage? Let me say that again. Doug Weiss claims Lisa neglected him, abused him, abandoned him, refused to touch him for years. Yet they still work together every single day, running the same business. Does that make any sense to you?
Now let me show you something, because before we talk about whether Doug will go back to Lisa, we need to establish one thing. Doug Weiss loved Lisa. Not past tense, not used to love, loved. And I can prove it. Let me show you what Doug said about Lisa, in his own words, for over 30 years. Here's Doug in a video interview.
I guess the butterfly feelings kind of last, I guess, for the first 18 months of maybe a new relationship. Is it because those fade away?
Mine don't. I got 30 years and I'm still butterflied as soon as she walks. Seriously.
That's good.
Lisa's my buddy. She's my friend and co-partner in business and everything we do. And I invest in that.
What's your favorite things about Lisa?
Oh, she's got the purest heart I've ever met. I mean, it's just, she loves and serves with excellence. Everything she does with excellence. You know, she's an amazing individual, creativity-wise. She's an amazing mom, and she runs our company. You know, we just bought a 20,000 square foot building for a counseling center. That's a lot. She runs it like a home. I mean, people just like her because she's just got this kind of like, how can I help you? Heart. Mm-hmm. You know, that's just easy.
That is so much like my Joni.
Oh, thank you.
30 years, still butterflies. Here's Doug in another teaching.
Do you remember when you said I do? What does your I do mean that you would do? I praise my wife all the time because that is the voice of God towards her.
The voice of God towards her. Here's Doug being candid.
I mess up my wife all the time because I want more sex the rest of my life. And I just really mean it with Lisa. I love her so much. She satisfies my inner being.
Here's Doug teaching about sexual intimacy.
She's a very lovely, nice girl. But I can tell you, after years of doing sex right, I am so attached to Lisa's big green eyes, it just blows my mind. I look at those eyes and I'm thinking, I am coming home tonight. Because I am attached to her eyes, because when we have sex, we maintain eye contact. I am attached to her soul.
Attached to her soul. Let me ask you something. Do those sound like the words of a man who is being abused, neglected, and untouched? Now, let me show you the difference. Because when Doug talks about Joni, it's different.
It's scripted. It's performative. It's rehearsed. Listen to this announcement Doug made when Joni was sick.
You to do something for me. I want you to pray for Joni. You may have noticed that she hasn't been on the show recently. She injured her back recently and is healing from 2 hairline fractures on her spine, the T11 and L1. And if you've ever experienced anything in your spine, you know that it hurts. And she's recovering, but it's probably going to take several weeks for her to get back.
And at Joni's memorial service, Doug's eulogy was pre-recorded.
Hi, I'm Dr. Doug Weiss. I had the privilege of being Joni's husband. And I want to first thank all of you who love my wife enough to travel across the country, some across the world, stay in hotels, and interrupt your life and pause to value the life of my precious Joni. You've already heard from some of the best communicators in the world, literally, and great friends of Joni's and mine. They spoke of the many ways they've been touched by her, encouraged by her, as you have been too. All of her accomplishments, awards, and the woman could sing like an angel. However, I want to tell a different story. Now, the team knew I would probably cry, so they asked me to do this video. And I'm going to say to myself, and I'm going to say to all of you, she's worth every tear. We are all going to continue to cry. She's worthy of those, and let yourself grieve. Now, you all know her as Joni Lamb, the co-founder of Daystar, author, singer, but I knew Joni Lamb as Baby. My baby. And we, like many of you, started dating and holding hands on the beach. We laughed and talked. And one day I put a ring on that hand. I had one request in this ceremony of marriage. Joni could do whatever she wanted. And that is when you make that pronouncement, it goes like this. I present to you lovers for life, husband and wife. And I took that hand and I walked out that chapel, and we both kept our word. We did the fun stuff like whitewater rafting, biking, walking. We met with presidents and many distinguished people all around the world.
Pre-recorded, not spoken from the heart in the moment, not spontaneous, not real, pre-recorded and fully scripted. Compare that to how Doug spoke about Lisa. Natural, flowing, from the heart, filled with emotion and detail. That tells you everything. Now, here's where this gets interesting, because I believe Doug Weiss saw an opportunity. He saw a wealthy widow, a woman who owned a multi-million-dollar television network, a platform that could give him everything he ever wanted. And Doug had been wanting a TV show for years. Listen to what Jonathan Lamb said.
The other troubling thing was that Doug had been appearing on Daystar as a guest for well over a decade, probably multiple times a year. So he'd had well over 20 appearances on Daystar over the past decade. So he knew about Daystar, he knew about the platform, he knew what it had to offer, and he was on record stating that he had always wanted a television ministry. And so, ironically, he says the reason he actually started conversating with my mom was he called her to tell her that he is buying time on the ministry for his program, and he just wanted to let her know that he was divorced.
Doug wanted a TV show. Joni owned the network. Do the math. Now, before we go any further, let me ask you something. Why are you watching this? I'm guessing it's because you care about accountability in the church. You care about truth. You're tired of watching celebrity pastors get away with corruption while good people get destroyed. Me too. And if that's you, subscribe to this channel, because we're not stopping. We're going to keep holding these ministries accountable. We're going to keep telling the stories that nobody else will tell. But YouTube only recommends content to people who engage with it. So if you want more content like this, subscribe, like, comment, share. Let's make sure the truth gets louder than the lies. Now let's get back to it. Now let me show you how Doug Weiss disposed of Lisa. And I use that word intentionally, disposed, because that's exactly what it looks like. When you see an opportunity, a wealthy widow, a television network, a platform, millions of dollars. You need to figure out how to get rid of the wife you've praised for 30 years. And Doug had a problem. He had no biblical grounds for divorce. Here's the timeline. Pay attention to this because it's crucial. November 30th, 2021, Marcus Lamb dies. December 2021, Doug Weiss attends Marcus's memorial service. According to Jonathan, Doug was the first person to see the casket open. Doug made a comment saying he wanted to make sure Marcus was still in there. Think about that for a second. What kind of comment is that? January 2022, Doug files for divorce from Lisa, barely 2 months after Marcus dies. May 31st, 2022, Doug's divorce from Lisa is finalized. But here's the kicker. Nobody knows about it. For over a year, Doug Weiss continues counseling couples at Heart to Heart Counseling Center. He continues teaching seminars. He continues writing about marriage. He continues presenting himself as a man in a great marriage, all while divorced.
So for well over a year, he counseled patients at his counseling center under the guise that he had a great marriage. And so that's deceptive. I mean, if you're going through a divorce, I think you should disclose that to your patients.
Over a year, counseling couples, pretending to be happily married while divorced. So when did Doug finally announce his divorce? February 8th, 2023, almost a full year after the divorce was finalized. And why did he announce it then? Because Joni was about to announce their engagement on February 10th, 2023, just 2 days later. Listen to what Jonathan Lamb said.
Joni's about to announce her engagement, but he hasn't even disclosed to any of his employees that he's even divorced. So
Doug announced his divorce 2 days before Joni announced their engagement. Because he had to. Because people would have found out anyway. Doug Weiss kept his divorce secret for almost a year because he knew it would damage his business, his reputation, his credibility. And the moment he was forced to announce it, he immediately announced his engagement to Joni. That's not healing. That's not processing. That's not grief. That's opportunism. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Because according to Jonathan Lamb, Joni actually tried to do the right thing. At least at first. Listen to what Jonathan said.
One night after dinner, we were sitting on our porch area overlooking the ocean. And it was me and Susie and my mom sitting down. And that's when she first disclosed that she'd been texting Dr. Doug Weiss. Me and Susie were just completely shocked because this is Dr. Doug Weiss, the guy that has a marriage and counseling ministry, a counseling center to heal and restore marriages. We had no idea that he was even divorced, much less talking to my mom. She was like a giddy teenager running out to answer the call. But she was trying to keep it on the down low because she hadn't told anyone besides me or Susie that she was talking to Doug at that time.
Now listen to this part carefully.
I remember she told us when we were talking overlooking the beach on the patio, she said that she's interested in Doug. However, she wants to do the honorable thing and make sure that he and Lisa can go through counseling just to make sure there's not a last-ditch effort to, reconcile their marriage. And so my mother arranged that Doug and Lisa had separate stints to go to Living Waters Ministry to counsel with Denise Boggs.
Joni arranged for Doug and Lisa to go to counseling. The counseling was intended to determine if reconciliation was possible. This is important. Let me say it again. Joni made this arrangement because before moving forward with Doug, she wanted to confirm that his marriage had truly ended. Yet, it raises the question, why was Joni facilitating counseling for Doug and Lisa when she already knew Doug was interested in her? So what happened in that counseling? Denise Boggs counseled Doug, Lisa, and Joni. She had all the information. She saw all sides. And here's what she concluded. Doug was deceiving everyone.
I think her intentions were true at that point. Again, I think Doug was the one doing double thing because he was telling Denise one thing, telling Joni another.
Yeah, there was that deception. Denise counseled with Doug, with Lisa, and with my mother, and knew all the details that she did, and she clearly saw the spirit of deception that was on my mother.
But based on other sources, Denise told Joni that Doug was a wolf in sheep's clothing. So Denise Boggs, the counselor who saw Doug, Lisa, and Joni, told Joni, Doug is a wolf in sheep's clothing. And what did Joni do? She married him anyway. Now here's the crucial question. What did Lisa want? Did Lisa want the divorce? Or did Doug force it on her?
They say that she abandoned him. That's his excuse, that his ex-wife abandoned him. The ex-wife is running his business. The ex-wife, from his own lips, we have other recordings where he said she was a faithful, good wife, a great mother for 30-something years, maybe 36, I'm not exactly sure, but over 30 years. And this part is the sad part. She was begging him to stay and not leave her.
Lisa was begging Doug to stay.
Would you say that grounds for divorce was present in this situation for Doug to leave and marry Joni?
My goodness. Well, that's a direct question, isn't it? No.
Denise Boggs, who counseled all three parties, said there was no abandonment.
Moment for me when I truly realized that this is not the God I serve is not here is the day that Joni came over. It was Jonathan, me, and JW. We were about to watch the Cowboys game, and Joni was angry and said, Doug is in Colorado, and his ex-wife, had been begging him all day to reconcile and to choose her, and then Joni was like, it makes me want him more. Shows me what a great husband he'll be.
His ex-wife had been begging him all day to reconcile and to choose her, and Joni said, makes me want him more. Lisa wanted to reconcile. Doug refused, and Joni saw that as a good thing. So here's what actually happened. Marcus dies November 2021. Doug files for divorce 2 months later, January 2022. Doug starts texting Joni, exact start date unknown, but likely early 2022. Doug's divorce is finalized May 31st, 2022. Doug keeps the divorce secret for almost a year, May 2022 to February 2023. Joni arranges counseling for Doug and Lisa with Denise Boggs. Lisa begs Doug to reconcile. He refuses. Denise tells Joni that Doug is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Joni ignores the warning. Doug announces divorce, February 8th, 2023. Forced because Joni is about to announce engagement. 2 days later, Joni announces engagement, February 10th, 2023. Doug and Joni get married, June 10th, 2023. This wasn't a man escaping abuse. This was a man positioning himself for wealth and power. Now let me show you something that Doug tried to hide. Because Doug Weiss didn't just divorce Lisa and move on. He tried to erase the evidence that he ever loved her. There's an article Doug wrote on August 8th, 2017 called When the Devil Talks to Your Wife. This article was published on medium.com, DrDoug.com, his official website, Charisma Magazine under the title Husbands, Stop Letting the Devil Accuse Your Wife, Heart to Heart Counseling Center Facebook page, November 11th, 2019. But now, the article is gone. If you click the links today, you get 404 error messages. Doug Weiss scrubbed this article from the internet. Why? Because it contradicts everything he's saying now. Let me read you some excerpts from that article. When the Devil Talks to Your Wife, the deleted article. I remember one day, probably over 10 years ago, I was driving home from work. All of a sudden, a stream of thoughts of what my wife wasn't came into my mind.
The list seemed intense, long, and really let me feel hopeless that I would ever be truly happy. Then I realized that these were not my thoughts or feelings toward my precious bride. Then, more importantly, I realized that they were not even true. As a Christian counselor, I have heard men repeat similar experiences. The devil talks to them about their wife's weight, clothes, sex life, cooking, cleaning, lack of appreciation for who he is, or all the work he does for her. He can never make her happy, and the list goes on and on. This is the devil and company talking about your wife. Remember Revelation 12:10. The devil is the accuser of the brethren. I think we know brethren includes all Christians, especially our godly, beautiful wives.
Now listen to this part. This is key. The next step of this conversation that the devil wants you to have is all that you are missing. You know, you were young when you picked her. You didn't really know what you wanted. You thought you were going to be adored every day of your life. Sex was going to be overflowing to your imagination. You're really missing out on life married to this woman. How stupid could you have been? The devil is cruel. The truth is, most of us don't deserve the wife we have. We are fallen creatures who constantly sin, and really, it's a miracle that our wives love us. And then Doug writes this, and this is why he deleted the article. The devil doesn't stop. If you keep listening, you'll start hearing the voice of entitlement creeping in. You know, you're entitled to happiness. You're entitled to a happy woman in your life, a cleaner house, more adoration, more sex, smarter, and one who makes more money. You know the drill. This part of the conversation is really tricky. The devil is trying to discourage you from rejoicing in the inheritance you have been graciously given by God the Father, his daughter, your wife. Let me stop there. Doug Weiss warned husbands that the devil would tell them they're entitled to a happy woman, more money, more adoration. And then Doug did exactly that. He left his wife of 36 years and married a multimillionaire who owned a television network. Doug became the very example of what he preached against. But there's more. In that same article, Doug shared his practical things I do to win this battle against the devil's lies about his wife. I have a memorized list of 5 great characteristics about my wife. She is absolutely gorgeous. She will never be unfaithful. The best sex of my life has only been with her. She is the greatest mom. She is the total of God's inheritance for me as a lifetime partner. I know these cold. If the devil attacks my wife, I can quote these characteristics back to him. This leads me to the next thing I do. I start praising God for my wife. I break out in spontaneous gratitude toward God for my wife. Thank you that you made Lisa just for me. Thank you for her eyes, her character, her beauty, her intelligence, endurance of me, great sex, and so on. This really upsets the devil, thwarts his plans, and actually makes you feel closer to your wife when you get home. Doug had a memorized list of Lisa's 5 great characteristics. Doug praised God for Lisa, for her eyes, her character, her beauty, her intelligence. Doug said Lisa was the total of God's inheritance for me as a lifetime partner. And then he divorced her and married Joni. Now let me show you a comment from someone who knows Doug personally. Karen Rios is a betrayal trauma coach who was personally trained by Doug Weiss. She worked with him. She learned from him. She sent clients to him. And here's what she said after Doug's divorce and remarriage. I'm a betrayal trauma coach trained under Doug. He didn't tell any of us. He took thousands and thousands of dollars while living a lie. He posted, "Divorce isn't an option." He texted this in 2017, telling the world about it. He still gets butterflies. I guarantee you, if Joni lost Daystar and all her money, he wouldn't stay with her or ever have been with her. Lisa made them take down the original Daystar video with Jimmy introducing Doug, where they blatantly threw her under the bus. If she was abusive, she couldn't continue working at Heart to Heart or run it. Jimmy never talked to her and asked her side of the story. Duh, no brainer. She wanted her marriage and cried out to Doug to try. Joni even told Susie this. They went to Denise Boggs, who said Lisa had hope leaving from there. I believe he only went to say he tried. Joni, the one who suggested it. So what does that tell you? Denise herself told Joni after that Doug was a wolf in sheep's clothing. A woman who was trained by Doug Weiss says, Doug took money while living a lie. If Joni lost her money, Doug wouldn't have stayed. Lisa wanted her marriage and begged Doug to try. Denise Boggs told Joni that Doug was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Now let's talk about Doug's excuse for divorcing Lisa. Because Doug didn't just divorce Lisa and move on quietly. He had to create a narrative. He had to justify why a marriage counselor, a man who built his entire career on helping couples stay together, would divorce his wife after 36 years. And the narrative Doug created was this: Lisa abandoned me. Lisa abused me. Lisa neglected me. Lisa refused to touch me. Let me show you what Doug said in the leaked board meeting audio from July 2023. This is Doug defending his divorce to Jonathan and Susie Lamb.
What you didn't trust is I gave 1,000% to make that possible. 1,000%. My heart cried out for her to do that. Okay, I gave it 1,000%. And you're saying, oh, well, just keep doing it. I have been through an incredible amount of pain. And you're saying, Doug, damn it, just suck it up and try it.
I'm not saying that. No, I'm just saying, wouldn't that be the most honoring thing before the Lord?
It's not honoring to be abused. It's not honoring to be abused. It's not honoring to be neglected. It's not honoring to be untouched and unloved. It's not honoring to do that.
Let me pause there. Doug's claims: 30 years of being neglected, abused, untouched, unloved, tried 1,000%. Now let me show you why none of this adds up. Remember what Doug said about Lisa for 30 plus years?
Is it because those fade away?
Mine
and
don't. I got 30 years and I'm still butterflied as soon as she walks. Seriously.
That's good.
Lisa's my buddy. She's my friend and co-partner in business and everything we do. Oh, she's got the purest heart I've ever met.
I am so attached to Lisa's big green eyes. I am attached to her soul. I mess up my wife all the time because I want more sex the rest of my life. I love her so much. She satisfies my inner being.
I praise my wife all the time because that is the voice of God towards her.
Does any of that sound like a man who's been neglected, abused, untouched, and unloved for 30 years? No. Doug claims he was neglected and abused for 30 years. But listen to when Doug was still praising Lisa publicly. 2017. Doug writes, "When the devil talks to your wife," praising Lisa, listing her 5 great characteristics, saying she's God's inheritance for me as a lifetime partner. November 11th, 2019. Doug shares this article on Heart to Heart Counseling Center Facebook page, still promoting his love for Lisa. Multiple videos from 2010s to early 2020s. Doug teaching about his butterflies for Lisa, their great sex life, her pure heart. So Doug was publicly praising Lisa, teaching about their amazing marriage, and telling the world she satisfies my inner being, while supposedly being abused and neglected? That doesn't add up. Now here's a huge problem. Jimmy Evans, the man who counseled Doug and Joni, who endorsed their marriage, who performed their wedding, never spoke to Lisa. Never got her side of the story. Listen to this exchange from the board meeting.
Well, you know, Doug could have just told you half-truths or one side of the story.
Well, yeah. Jonathan, I have a lot of experience, I have a lot of discernment. I could have, in talking to Doug and also with Joni, I could have discerned if he was lying in 5 minutes because I know how to talk to him. And when he said to me when we were talking and I asked him question after question after question after question, he answered every question exactly, and he never dishonored Lisa. Never threw under the bus. Never.
But he's a pro. He's like the best of the best when it comes to like dealing with people.
You've dehumanized him.
He would know what to say, you know.
I'm an object in this world. In the world that you guys created, Doug's an object. He's not a soul. Yeah. He's not a brother in Christ. Yeah. He's not forgiven. He's not the righteousness of Christ. He's an object.
That's Doug.
So you have dehumanized him. He's professional. He knew what he was doing and seducing a grieving widow and all this stuff. What I'm saying is, as a human, I'm talking to Doug on the phone and I'm asking questions, and he's answering every single question the way I've heard it answered over and over and over by someone who's been abused over a long period of time. And so number one. Number two is I talked to people and I asked questions, because I'm not going to tell you who I talked to, but I asked questions and I got the answers about what was happening in their relationship. And I met Lisa a couple of times. And so I was satisfied because of the conversations I had with her and him and others, that in having a conversation with Lisa, I'm not going to talk to Lisa. I didn't talk to Lisa, and I'm not going to defend myself on that.
Jimmy Evans, who counseled Doug and endorsed the marriage, never spoke to Lisa. He met her a couple of times, but never had a conversation with her about the divorce. He only got Doug's side of the story. Remember, Denise Boggs actually did counsel with Doug, Lisa, and Joni. She heard all sides. And here's what happened when Laura Lynn asked her about Doug's abandonment claim.
Would it be your determination that after meeting so intimately with all the parties, that your determination would be that abandonment has been adequate grounds for divorce between Doug and Lisa?
You know, I'm just sitting here recalling my time with Lisa. So, no, I mean, I guess that must have been a term, to be honest with you, that was given to it at a later time, maybe, to come up with, everybody's trying to figure out what happened to a 30-year marriage who's had a ministry together. They work together to heal, restore marriages. And so I guess maybe that's the term they came up with, of what went wrong. But that was not, I did not work with them at all based on abandonment. No, I didn't.
Denise Boggs, the actual counselor who met with everyone, said there was no abandonment. Lisa begged Doug to reconcile. Lisa wanted to reconcile. Doug refused. That's not abandonment. That's Doug abandoning Lisa. Now, here's the question that destroys Doug's entire narrative. How do you continue working with someone who allegedly abused you for 30 years? Let me say that again slowly. Doug Weiss claims Lisa neglected him for 30 years. Lisa abused him. Lisa refused to touch him. Lisa made his life unbearable. Yet Doug and Lisa still work together. They still run Heart to Heart Counseling Center together, even after the divorce. If your spouse abused you, neglected you, refused to touch you for 30 years, would you continue working with them every single day? Would you trust them to run your business? Would you maintain a working relationship with no bitterness? Of course not. Because if someone truly abused you, you wouldn't want to be in the same room with them, let alone the same business. So what does this tell us? It tells us one of two things. Option one, Doug is lying about the abuse/neglect. Lisa never abused him. He made it up to justify the divorce. Option two, Doug is so desperate for money and business stability that he's willing to work with his abuser every day. Which one makes more sense to you? I think it's option 1. Doug is lying. And the reason Doug and Lisa still work together is simple. They never really separated. Not emotionally, not professionally, not permanently. The divorce was a piece of paper to free Doug up to marry a wealthy woman. But the partnership, the business, the counseling center, the life they built together, that never ended. Now, here's where we get to the heart of this episode. The question I posed at the beginning: will Doug Weiss go back to Lisa now that Joni is gone? And I know it sounds crazy. I know some of you are thinking there's no way. But let me show you why this is actually possible. Not just possible, plausible. Because when you look at the evidence, when you look at the patterns, when you look at what Doug has actually done versus what he said, a picture emerges that suggests Doug never really left Lisa at all. Let me start with the most obvious point. Doug and Lisa still work together. They still run Heart to Heart Counseling Center together every single day. Think about what that means. They see each other regularly. They make business decisions together. They manage staff together. They counsel clients together. They coordinate schedules together. They share financial information about the business. This is not the behavior of two people who are truly done with each other. Now let me show you what Lisa represents versus what Joni represented. Lisa represents 36 years of partnership, the business they built together, professional credibility, the counseling center they co-founded, a shared life's work, stability foundation, history. Joni represented money, power platform, a television network, fame, opportunity, wealth advancement. See the difference? Lisa was the foundation. Joni was the opportunity. And now that Joni is gone, what does Doug have? Here's a practical reality. Heart to Heart Counseling Center needs Lisa. According to Doug's own words, Lisa runs the counseling center. Lisa manages the operations. Lisa is the backbone of the business. Without Lisa, Heart to Heart doesn't function the same way. Doug might be the face, but Lisa is the operations. Doug needs Lisa professionally. Now, here's the crucial question. Would Lisa take Doug back? And based on the evidence, the answer is possibly, maybe even probably. Why? Because Lisa wanted to reconcile even when Doug was leaving her. Remember? She was begging him to stay and not leave her. Denise Boggs said Lisa had hope leaving from there. Lisa didn't want the divorce. Lisa wanted to save the marriage. And if Lisa wanted to reconcile, then when Doug was actively pursuing Joni, she might be willing to reconcile now when Doug has nowhere else to go. Especially if Doug comes back, apologetic, humble, repentant, broken, claiming he made a terrible mistake, Lisa might forgive him. Christians are taught to forgive. Lisa is described as having the purest heart I've ever met. Pure-hearted people forgive.